Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Daniel. I'm the product manager working on the package manager.
I'm Philippe, and I'm the development lead for the package manager.
Thank you for joining us today. Let's jump right into it. So what is the package manager fundamentally? I think first it's important to start off with today in Unity, we have the concept of a Unity package. It's a system that's been there for many years. It's something which you've seen on the asset store. What we're going to talk about today is an evolution of that system and essentially a new system that is here to help deliver a dynamic and modular system for basically how you consume and how eventually you'll be able to publish assets and tools. It's helped us as well as a way to able to modularize Unity in a way that we can then deliver features and customize and extend the editor. And ultimately, we want to drive this as a user-facing function going forward and build on that with additional Unity releases. So first, let's jump into the anatomy of a package.
So a package is a unit that's composed of assets. It's self-contained, so everything that relates to the package is in the same folder. Everything travels within the same folder. And it's something that's part of a project. So it's something that's added to the project. You don't install a package on your machine, you add a package to your project. When I'm talking about asset, it's both asset that you can consume, visuals, models, sounds, but it's also tools that you can add to your project while you open your editor.
I think it's important to also look at the package and the examples of, there's the documentation, there's the licensing information, there's everything that you would need as a potential author to what you need to end up exposing to a user. And likewise, as the end user, what do you need to know about this package, its feature set, what does it do, before you actually choose to use it within Unity, such as licensing information is very important, for example. And where does the package manager and the packages themselves fit within your project?
So your project, as we were mentioning earlier, contains different packages. What does that mean? Your project contains a manifest, and your manifest refers to the package your project depends on. So if you look at the diagram here, the manifest might specify that you're depending on bar, foo, and par, 3 packages. Those packages are referenced. So the code of those packages is not embedded in your project. They're referred to by your project. If you open your project and those packages are not available in your local cache, the package manager will pull them from the Unity registry and bring the proper version your project needs on your machine. If you have 5 projects using the same version of the same package on your machine, the package will be downloaded only once. When you transfer your package to another friend working with your project, to another friend working with you, he's going to open the project. If there's package missing, those packages will get downloaded from the main registry. When you alter a package, you can embed the package. So the package that we see here, the Tyrell.rep, might be an internal package that you're working on, maybe to publish it after, or maybe only to have something that you publish internally with your company. When the package is in edition mode, it's going to get embedded in your project, so it's part of the files inside your project. If you copy your project or use a source control to share your project with somebody else, the content of the package will travel with the project. The packages that are referred to will be, that are in the cache will be read-only. You cannot edit them.
So in practical terms, what you'd see today, it starts with essentially the project creation flow. So in this example with the hub, we're about to select a template. The idea of the template is predefining what type of packages you want within that manifest. The template also contains scene settings, but importantly to this workflow is I've chosen SRP, for example, and for VR, and it's going to end up selecting the appropriate packages as part of that manifest, loading them into the project. And the manifest JSON is something which you can then go offline and edit, for example. There's also the concept within the project creation, tying it to the editor release. So in the editor release, we have a set of default packages and previously modules that are now also available. And as the system evolves, we'll extend on how that behavior becomes more subtractive or potentially additive, depending on what you need based on the project creation. Going to the core of it, it's important to identify, slide skip, 2 types of packages in the package lifecycle itself. There's package preview. These are fundamentally still under development. they are not ready for production. This is where, as Unity, for example, we're pushing out preview packages for all the latest features and additional enhancements to the editor itself. This is where we want to leverage feedback on the community. How does this work within your workflow, and so on and so forth. And then through each release cycle, we go through a verification stage. And we'll get more into that later, what fundamentally that means behind the scenes. But fundamentally, this means it's supported. This is what, when you go and download Unity 2018.2, there will be a list of verified packages. These are the ones which are tested and blessed, essentially, with various other verified packages that comprise the feature set that is supported with, say, 2018.2. And the cycle continues.
In this new paradigm, the product that we now ship to our customers is no longer the core of the editor, or what we call the kernel. It's the kernel plus a set of verified packages. This whole thing represents now the product. That's why it's important for us to flag them as verified with a given version, and so we have a product we're confident to ship, and that all those pieces work well together.
So what we're working on next. So in 2018.1, for example, we introduced the Package Manager UI. This was a way to interface, more user-friendly with the API that was previously available and released in 2017.2. So here's an example of the Package Manager UI, which in itself is a preview package currently. You'll be able to test that, for example, in alpha and beta releases coming up soon. The idea is we needed to refresh the UI a little bit because as our package list grows, so does the complexity on how to manage this. So being able to filter and select what's more easily intuitively, what's in your project or not, being able to search specifically for keywords and metadata from the package basically manifests itself to be able to choose what you want. And more intuitive ways to know that when you're installing an update, how do we point you to the latest update that, for example, if you are currently in a release version of the editor, that this is actually you're updating to a verified package and not accidentally installing a preview, for instance. We want to make that a bit more intentional if you're using release versions of the editor, but also make it more open in the beta versions. And importantly, one addition, of course, that you may have seen slide through the video there, is the ability to add a custom or local package. So if you've embedded something or you built your own package on the side, make it quick and easy to add that to the project manifest and into your project itself. Other things we're tackling. Oh, just one second. There we go. Git URL support. We've heard a lot of feedback on the forums related to the same type of, I'm developing a package, I'm using GitHub, I'm using GitLab, I have my own source code repository, or even something that we're doing as well. How can you then go and point to a Git URL from your project manifest or through the Pacman UI, be able to ingest that in the same way?
The package that are shipped with the products are bundled, packaged, and put on a registry in not a binary form, but because we generally include the source of the package within itself, but it's really a deliverable form, and it's an immutable thing. So if we deliver something called foo 1.0, this thing will never change. If we change it, we're going to bump the version. The Git flow allows us and will allow you to develop something, be in the flow of the development, and send hot snapshot to people sharing the package with you, and to be able to iterate faster.
So as we covered before, we have the concept of a Unity-owned registry. These are packages that us as Unity developers and R&D are uploading and making available to users. But we've heard a lot of feedback about what about my own internal tools. So the idea of being able to point to a private registry so that for your own in-house tools, or maybe something which you've downloaded from the Unity registry but want to host locally within your network, is something which we can then look at managing through the Pacman UI. Pull the things down, your own custom developments, host them to your users in the same way that we're hosting them today with the Package Manager. And I think most importantly with this new system and just this new fundamental way of ingesting tools into your editors, how do you manage the dependencies? Common case, described here, for example, with the render pipeline, you'll potentially have two packages separately, such as the lightweight render pipeline and the high-end render pipeline, dependent on the core. Being able to manage these, this is something which we're taking care of for our own tools, but then being able to actually show that visualization so that if you're updating one package that has a core dependency that also needs to be updated, what else is it affecting within your project potentially? And I think to that point as well, as we've evolved and as we're moving more and more tools to packages, making this selection and update more user-friendly and actually intuitive for users to actually see what am I changing when I go from, say, Unity 2018.1 to 2018.2 to 2018.3? How is my manifest changing? What are my packages fundamentally changing? And how that may affect my project going forward? Providing either a bulk selection of, we'll move you straight to verified, for example, or more intuitive, selective nature of, okay, well, I need this package to stay preview. I want to update to the latest preview, for example, because you may be experimenting with something, for instance. The future of what we're trying to do. So there's a lot of ground that we've covered. I think we have a very strong foundation in what we're trying to expose and build on. But there's also a lot more that we're really exploring and still looking for a lot of feedback from the community and everyone on what are your challenges with development and releasing tools, and how did your users end up consuming them within your own workflows and studios. So one of the ways we're looking at it is, what is that integrated package experience? We have these concentric circles of where things can be consumed throughout the life cycle of a project, all the way down to the user. So there's global content at large, whether that be from the asset store or other community-driven content. Content being tools, can be scripts, could be meshes. It can be anything that you need to actually build your project. There's the studio level. What are you authoring internally? What are you exposing to your various project teams, for example? Going down to the project level, going down to the recent project level. There's various ways where these ideas of what do you need depending on the given context of what you're working in.
One thing we might want to mention is that our objective is to have a single package format. So as most of you probably know, we currently have a .unity package format. That package format serves a good purpose, but it lacks certain aspects like dependencies, the fact that you're able to keep everything at once. It makes it really hard, for example, to update if you have a new version of a package available in the asset store. It makes it hard also, we're going to cover that a bit later, but to do something like for an asset store publisher to sell a subscription to their package. So the goal is to eventually migrate everything we deliver to the new package format. All the asset store content, all the content from Unity, so all the tutorials, the samples, all the templates. So Daniel mentioned that a bit earlier. All the content will be delivered through the same package management ecosystem. So those circles are important because there's going to be a lot of items there. To have an experience that uses and leverage your context is a key thing from a UX perspective to be able to work with packages.
So looking at it from how we're exposing it today to where we see it going forward, and really looking at what is the artist-driven workflow for ingesting these and consuming these packages within their project, not just from a setup and update point of view, but from these packages contain assets. They contain anything you need essentially to create an author. What does that level look like? And we're looking at the concept of an asset library, being able to browse your studio as a whole, pull things down in through on a project level to a user local level, for example, and that connection back to the global ecosystem, such as the asset store itself. Looking at it from a workflow context, how can we filter things down based on how you're actually working at a given point in the editor? You're doing world building. What do you need for world building being exposed to you at any given time? What are you doing when you're actually authoring animation, for example?
One of the goals we have also is to eventually add some semantic level to the content of packages. It's not the same thing if you're consuming a library of texture, for example, or if you did purchase a collection of Japanese sword. You will want different things to be exposed in the UI. In the case of the base texture that you have, you want to show these textures everywhere. In the case of the sword, you might not want to see all the little details of the sword, but you want to see when you're able to add an object to the scene, you want to be able to pick those sword as an object. And if we're able to have the proper semantic level, you'll have the notion that this thing is a sword. You want to change it with something else, then being able to search and say, hey, I have comparable items that are also swords that you want to be able to switch, which is something we're showing a bit in the next slide, will allow you to browse more easily through your content.
And on that note?
So this is another inspirational UI, this idea that in scene browsing, being able to, for a given object or a given element in the UI, in your scene view, to be able to select that, and be able to try different alternatives, to preview things. So that's one of the things we really want to push with the new package system, to be able to preview things before actually downloading them or purchasing them in the case of the asset store, we think is an important point because it's something that's been requested by a lot of people. We still have a lot of discussions around that, but one of the approach we might eventually take with the store is to allow some itemization. So for asset store publisher, today when you buy something on the store, you buy a whole package, but to have this idea that you would be able to buy a single texture in a package might be something we do in the future. It's important both to have good consuming flow, but we also want to have the most seamless publication flow within the editor. Whether you're developing a package for your own studio, or if you're an asset store publisher and want to push that on the store, we really want to streamline the way you develop things. With packages, we try to make it with the language for editing should be the same that you know and that exists in the editor. The difference, as you see on the screen here, is that it's something that resides in a special folder, and from there you're able to add content and modify it. We also want to have really simple flows to allow you to quickly publish, whether to your Git repo or to a local package registry, or eventually publish to the asset store. In that regard, I don't know if the next slide is a good one. But
yeah, and I think an important part is also to mention reducing the pain points of what it takes to actually get things published from the steps that you need within the editor, within your account in the asset store, streamlining that process and leading into, of course, the actual validation itself.
What we're trying to put in place is a validation flow that allows you, both on your machine, easily to validate that your package is working well and sane. So make it easy for you to write tests and have a test RNS around your packages. And as well, propose those tools online. So have a cloud service, we're talking about the future, but a cloud service where, as a publisher, you're able to upload your package and have it go through a series of validation suite. Internally, we do have the tooling to test what we do when we code in the editor to test our stuff on multiple platforms, both in runtime and editor mode. We want to offer eventually the same capabilities to package author and asset store publisher to be able to upload their package, have an automated validation suite that is able to validate that all aspects that can be tested of the package are tested, and then have an OK that can go faster than we were able to do today. So make the vetting process go faster, but also have more information and be able to say, hey, yes, this was tested on all these platforms, and we were able to run all those tests.
So I think to summarize it up, as Phil mentioned, we are looking at how we can take the package store, the asset store format, migrate it over into the new format. Really one unified format which allows the same level of dependency and version management, unified UX. Importantly, on the entitlement subscription, this will be something new where currently today that's not as flexible as we need it to be, and as our publishers have asked us for the asset store. What could we offer, like just as we saw with the example of in-scene preview for in-scene, or even a trial for tools, for example. In a similar way that we're offering subscription for the editor, we could offer that same level of subscription potentially for asset store third-party publishers. Consumption and authoring flows, whether you're consuming it from your local registry or consuming it from the asset store, at the end of the day, you need to author it in the same way and work in the same way. And streamlining that purchasing process. If you see something and you're browsing an editor, you want to be able to use it right away and get going.
I guess
we'll open it up for questions. If anyone would like to approach the microphones on either side, please do. We would love to hear your feedback. There's a lot of stuff where we go.
I have one question. You talked about publishing to the asset store, but what about a studio-wide solution to make a local repository or something like that?
So the vetting suite, key part in the vetting suite is actually a test tooling suite that we have inside the editor. So when we will validate on the cloud, we run the editor to be able to run those tests, and then we generate runtime builds to be able to execute the tests on those builds. Those tools I think will be available for the studios because they will be part of the editor and part of the flow that you can use even on your machine. It's a question of knowing, are we able to automate in headless mode and run this test suite? But this is definitely something we're looking into because we really want to empower studio to be able to publish internally their own packages and have access to the same validation tools.
Okay, nice. So maybe in the future it would be possible to hook this system into a Jenkins or some sort of cloud build or something like that.
It's the same idea as running cloud build, but well, you're not running cloud build on-prem, but hosting a farm of which you can do today with the current editor. You can run in headless mode and do the build. It's the same type of flow we're looking at, yes.
Okay, nice. And there's a time launch window for all these features that we're talking about, or is already available?
I'm not able to talk about date because my product manager will have to kill me after that. So,
okay.
So no, I'm joking. We're slowly moving. You already have access to the package manager inside the editor. It's already possible if you're able to go a bit on the rough edge to alter your own package. So in the coming years, I would say, we would like to make it that more affordable, more easy for developers. But it's going to be a slowly growing curve, and we like to have feedback from people to say, well, let's make sure we walk before we run. But yeah, I think we're going to deliver part of what you're seeing, at least for the publication flow, in the coming 12-month period. I hope.
Okay, cool, thanks.
I'm sorry, Daniel. I had to give dates.
Hello.
It's really the other way around.
I guess my first question is, can I have two? So the first question is, do you plan to actually attach the version of the package with API status? Because what I mean about that is, when I create some tool that depends on some package, I'd like to be sure that this tool actually compiles. So is the version number, does the version number has meaning with the API, with regards to API, or maybe do you plan to bring something like the package whatever 2018.0 or newer defines pre-bundled with the package?
So we use semantic versioning for the packages. So the contract that you have, if you publish a package that has an API, if you break your API, you should bump your major version. So in the vetting suite, we'll validate that from the previous version of the package that was published, you're not breaking your API if you only bumped a minor version. And breaking an API is changing the signature, but it's also changing the behavior of the code, right? So that's something that's going to be really clearly defined and well embedded in packages. It's really part of this ecosystem. Otherwise, you pull on something and everything breaks. The part where it gets interesting, I would say, is that Unity doesn't really version for the core. The kernel doesn't version its API. There is the major product version, but the pledge we're trying to keep is that it will have this with the script updater. You're probably familiar with that. We try not to break APIs, so we'll try to stay compatible all the time. And the script updater is something that will run on packages as well. What we're doing for now is that in your package, you can also specify a dependency on certain editor or editor range. So that allows at least to alleviate some problems. You can say, well, this package, it's been tested. It works well with 18.1, 17.3, it's not covered.
And how does the package manager behave in batch mode? When you're running Unity headless, for example, on Jenkins, because right now, if the code is not compiling, the Unity just exits with code 1 and says goodbye. But if I don't have package installed, like I've just cloned the repository and I don't have package in my local cache, neither downloaded, is the package manager actually triggering? And is it downloading the packages as I want to build the project?
Yes, if you're hooked on the cloud. But if you're offline and you don't have your package locally or don't have a local repository that you can talk to, then it's going to fail. Your build is going to fail.
All right, so if I have my local Jenkins machine with connection to internet,
you should be fine. Yeah.
Your
cache will be populated, and packages are immutable. So if you don't destroy your Jenkins VM each time, or at least the cache part, you downloaded the version foo 1.0, the 2, that's immutable. It will never change. So if it's on the cache, it should always be valid.
All right, but what gets it on the cache? Do I need to?
It's a package manager. No, you don't need to do anything. If it's not in the cache, when we spawn the editor, the package manager spawn. Go grabs what's missing when it does the resolve stage of the opening.
Right, that's great, thanks.
The important part is that it's in your manifest for your project that you're trying to build with. The rest will take care of itself, basically.
I think that answers one of my questions. If I git ignore basically all the packages to avoid replicating that code everywhere, but then have a build machine or something like that, I would be able to pull those down easily?
If they're in your project manifest,
Yeah.
they will be pulled down.
And my main question is there a timeline on a preview of the custom repository setup so that we can start using
that's,
it?
again, I won't talk about that, but somehow it's not very far because it's something that it's not like a huge technical feat, so it's something that we're going to expose in the near future.
So if we start structuring our repositories using like NPM, are we far off?
Nope, not
Okay.
that far.
All right, thank you.
You may have seen something on the forums, for example, or some people have already tried this. We're not encouraging it, but yeah, moving on.
Hi. Our company has had like a long history of different package managements. We've been using Git submodules, a bit of Maven, and now we're kind of settled around NuGet. I find this to be the best at the moment because we used to get a case where people would accidentally like edit bits of code which were part of shared modules when we were in Git submodules. Yeah. And then kind of commit them back, not even thinking about it too much. And then before you know it, you've got shared code which is talking to your game. Do you have any like things in this package manager that will cater to those kind of circumstances?
Well, half of that is what I would call best practice or recommended practice on how you handle your code. But we don't handle your source code repository. So if the way our automation chain works internally for now at least is that as you tag a version in your repository, we're going to bump the version, but that's our internal tooling. We cannot assume too much on how people do version control on-prem and how they manage that, but we will certainly propose best practice and example script if you follow a flow that is similar to us. But the strong versioning of APIs, strong versioning of packages, and validation that you actually never republish a package with the same version or that you respect the semantic versioning is obviously the base layer of that, I think.
Okay. So I have like the lead-on question from this is I've ended up, so we've got loads of these NuGet DLLs. We've ended up with just using the DLL boundary. That's like we make our packages, we put them in DLLs, we can test against it. It's quite nice and isolated. No one can edit the code. But then I've tried to make something depend on TextMesh Pro.
Yep.
Which is just, it doesn't work because then the source code for TextMesh Pro is in the project.
Yep.
Is there any like, do you have plans to like maybe just have a binary option for some of these packages?
Well, it's something that you can do. So today you would be able to generate a TextMesh Pro bin package and then use that in your projects. Yeah. We try to encourage as much as possible to keep the source code, so to allow the people that are downloading the package to be able to grab the source and customize it and do their own custom version. I'm not sure, so far there's no plan into publishing source and binary version of the packages, but if it's something that's a strong need from the community, it's definitely technically something we could do.
It would make my life a bit better.
Yeah.
Hi, quick question
Yeah.
related to the private repository. Do you have any plans on having, for example, Artifactory support or TFS support or things like that? Or do I have to have a custom installation of a unit?
So we did base a lot of what we do on the NPM protocol. So far the plan is we'll have a richer protocol because there are things we want to do with the data and the search and all that. But we will always, I think, so far, we will always support the NPM protocol. So if you have Artifactory supports the NPM protocol, so you should be good.
Perfect. Thank you.
2 more minutes.
Yeah, just 2 more minutes.
Yeah, thanks to the talk. I have a question. Since you mentioned the packages are immutable, what about packages that still add resources folders to their sample scenes and stuff like that? Will there be like a deactivate sample scenes option or something like this?
We're working on different scenarios because these are cases we get more and more having sample in the scene. One of the things that's going to be quite easy within our next UI coming next year is the ability to take something from a package and to copy some part of that in your project to be able to edit it. Another flow is to be able to embed the project. Some other proposals are to put the sample in a separate, like in a template or something that is another package that thing and a template will be editable by default once you create the project. So there's different approach we're looking at, but it's definitely something that needs to be ironed out in the UX process to make sure that it's not a pain for you.
Yeah, and like multiple things like asset bundles, editor gizmos, all these Unity special things should be taken into consideration.
Of course, yeah.
So we have time for one more question. Sorry, we come talk to us afterwards if we want to keep talking. But also for those, we just to let you know, we have a dedicated package manager forum. But before we clap and say thank you, please go ahead with your question. Really quick.
Right, so quick question. I apologize if you already answered it. I wasn't here for the beginning of the talk. But let's say we have 5 people on our team and we purchase a package like Odin or Bolt or whatever. Are we still going to need one account that owns all of those packages, or are they going to be like team owned or organization owned or something like that?
So where we're moving, and I'm a bit stepping in the asset store discussion, but really where we want to go as a company is that if you're an individual, then you buy stuff on an individual basis. If you're an organization, then you have an organization account where you can buy pro licenses and do seat assignment, and you can buy things from the asset store and use them within the team. So there's going to be a clear distinction between individuals and company, I think, in the future. But the idea is, yes, to make it simple for you to have a single organization account, acquire things, and share it among your team members.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.